Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about the show Supergirl and just, kind of a farewell and goodbye, which I gave mine in the my review of the series finale. But, I typically try to do this with series when they come to an end. But really quickly, for anyone that's unfamiliar with what Supergirl is, Supergirl was a show on the CW. It was part of the Arrowverse, the DC shows on the CW, where we followed Supergirl, Kara Zor-El, aka, Supergirl, aka Kara Danvers, because that's her Earth name, but Kara is Clark, aka Superman's cousin. She ended up getting saved from Krypton at the same time her cousin was. Granted, she ended up crashing landing on Earth years later because she got trapped in the Phantom Zone and time works differently. So by the time she came out and crash landed on Earth, her cousin had already lived like a good chunk of his life and had already become Superman. So when the time came, she spent most of her life living a normal life until she got older, and a situation where a plane was going to crash and her sister, or her adopted sister Alex, was on board. She ended up saving her, and that jump started her adventures as Supergirl. And it's just what I love about Supergirl in general, because I've talked about this before, every show amongst the DC shows was kind of a different show in its own way. Obviously, Arrow was kind of like the sort of grounded show, Flash is the meta-human show, and Supergirl was the alien show, because prior to that you had Legends of Tomorrow being the time travel show. So each show kind of had its lane, and mainly Supergirl's thing was aliens. Obviously we got introduced to the different alien species over the course of the series. Obviously one of the main characters is an alien, well, aside from Kara, that being John Jones, aka Martian Manhunter. And it's just a really neat series that I think is really obviously representing the changing of the world. I feel like out of any show, it highlighted it the most. It was a big reflection of the world stepping forward, and just obviously what the supers represent in general, both Clark as well as Kara. This S on their chest being the House of L symbol of hope. And I just think that's what the show just in general was. It was amongst any show, it is the most hope-filled show of just kind of believing in humanity and believing in each other, and the life lessons that Kara learned as she found her way. Once again, for a long time, she was just kind of in her cousin's shadow. It's oh, that's Superman's cousin. But it's no, she found her own way forward, being her own hero. And, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing. And I've talked about this before. What I love about Supergirl, too, is the show was originally on a different network. It was on CBS, if you remember, back with season 1. I mean, then, the first cross, it was a network crossover between CBS and the CW when Barry Allen from The Flash landed on her Earth, because her Earth used to be on a different Earth. It used to be on Earth 39, in the grand schemes of the multiverse. But, I think it's just just a great show. A lot of fascinating heroes. Obviously, you have spoilers. You have Jimmy finding his way to becoming a hero. You have a few characters that get introduced later on in the series. You got introduced to original heroes like Nia Null, aka Dreamer, who that character was created specifically for the show. But you also had once again other characters from the comic books like Mon-El or Brainy. Obviously the Luthors are a big part of the show, as Kara ended up befriending Lena, and how complicated that relationship was because Lena did everything she could to fight against the reputations that the Luthors have, because this Supergirl takes place deep in the Superman canon. Once again, Superman's been Superman for a while, so a lot of villains and people have already been established, but I just think it was just a hope-filled show that it's about persevering and learning and growing. And it's just especially when you look at just the cast, that being not just this superhero team, this team of superheroes isn't just a team of superheroes. They became a family, being there for each other, being the family that maybe some of them might have been missing in other regards. I keep saying the words over and over again, but that's what it is. It's just this outstanding pillar. The show just represents a pillar of hope, and I think that's the beautiful thing about what Supergirl represents, because The thing about the show is it got me to know more about Supergirl. I was slightly familiar with her just because of Smallville. I knew about her because of like some appearances she's had in some of the animated stuff in the past, like some of the Justice League stuff. I don't remember if she was in the Superman animated series from the 90s. She might have been, but I feel like I distinctly remember her from like the Justice League cartoons. But this was my first experience with her, especially, you know, having an entire series revolve around her, because obviously she was a recurring character in Smallville for a couple seasons, but this show was built around her. This was her story, and I think, honestly, without spoiling the series finale, I think it has a beautiful series finale. I think it was like a beautiful, like, farewell, because I'm curious, because like on the CW app there was an extended cut for the finale, so I'm curious like what was extended and what wasn't, because all of it felt like, oh, that was kind of necessary. Like, it just, maybe there were just certain extra scenes and stuff like that, but whatever the case may be, I think as a whole, I think the series finale does a great job of making Kara's story come full circle in many regards, because a big part of her story is struggling with her identity of balancing being Kara with being Supergirl. Because I feel like amongst the DC shows, other than Oliver, and, you know, because it wasn't the biggest thing for a lot of other people's, like, storylines. Like, Oliver probably, not too much with Barry. I mean, it comes up here and there, none of the legends. I'd say other than that, I'd probably say, like, Jeff, Black Lightning, and Oliver are probably the ones that have dealt with it the biggest, but I'd say other than them is Kara. Like, finding that perfect balance has always been a complication, and even that storyline continues to be a through line throughout the rest of the series, too, so I just think it's like, if you're, you know, you're looking for something, that feeling of coming together and let's work together to, like, you know, join together and we can accomplish so much. Like, this show is an embodiment of that feeling, that unification, I think, is, and it's a very beautiful thing. I mean, one thing I think the show does a really good job, speaking of unification, is that whole feeling of like, you're not alone. Just because you're from somewhere different, that's not a bad thing. You shouldn't be ostracized. We should all come together, you know, in spite of our differences and because of our differences. Like, everyone should be, you know, seated at the table and just be represented. I mean, representation is just like a core crux of the show, and I just think that's a very important thing. I mean, even it gives a very interesting insight to also, like, you know, the whole media side of things, of like, oh yeah, like, you know, journalism and reporting and stuff like that, kind of, you know, I think, you know, it you know, has conversations about a lot of topics, like I brought up before, like, that are significant to today, you know, is what I'm saying. So it's very, like I said, it draws in a lot of present day issues and things like that, like I brought up, or like representation and stuff like that. So I feel like it's one of those elements that the show shines so brilliantly at. The show is complete. It actually ended like a little over 3 weeks ago, was when the last 2 episodes of the series aired. So by now, it's definitely all 6 seasons have got to be on Netflix. CW stuff usually gets up there within a week of a season ending. So if you are curious about checking out Supergirl, all 6 seasons are on Netflix currently. So just be the best. Like, if you've never seen Supergirl, now would be a time to jump in. Maybe it'll be your cup of tea, maybe it's not. I know it isn't for everyone, and if it's not for you, that's fine. But as someone who's loved all this DC stuff on the CW, I've really loved Supergirl, and, you know, it was kind of sad to kind of say goodbye, but I think it went off, you know, in a big way in certain regards. I think that finale might end up definitely being on my list of some of my favorite finales, because I think it was just that good, of just like what it resolved, and also even then within the Arrowverse, what that still sets up, because there's stuff, you know, for as long as the Arrowverse keeps going, that stuff from these shows, even the ones that have ended, can always be pulled in from future continuities and stuff like that. So it's like what that means for the future of this continuity and stuff like that. But even just like where things ended off, it was just beautiful all around. So that's just me just running my mouth off, just talking about how much I love it. But yeah, that's really it. Like I said, just dedicating a video to an official goodbye to Supergirl. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good